What is going on, YouTube? We are live and we are covering a retro review here. Fan requested on Facebook. Nick on Facebook sent this to me and he wanted us to review this. So I got my buddies Jonesy Chats Wrestling on YouTube, Nonstop Wrestling Chat Barry on here on YouTube as well. Their links are in the description section below. How you guys doing?
Really good, man. How are you?
Not bad.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I'm really excited to be here. What a great pay-per-view to cover. Really excited, man.
Yeah, so it's a series I want to make after, if I can get people to send requests to they want to see these reviews of classic shows. This was the only one I got. This is the first one we got, so I decided to do a SuperBrawl 8 from 1998, headlined by Sting and Hogan for the vacated WCW World Heavyweight Championship. This is coming off the heels of the disastrous main event at Starrcade '97, the biggest hype match in the history of WCW. Sting in the ring for the first time since doing the whole crow shtick and basically being silent for an entire year. So it was the biggest build-up match of all time. It disappointed. It was a botched finish. Supposed to be a fast count by Nick Patrick. Was not a fast count, but they tried to play it off like it was. Here comes Bret Hart, changes it up. Sting ends up winning, and they vacate the championship afterwards to set up for SuperBrawl 8. This is taking place February 22nd of 1998 at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, California. A legendary arena. Attendance in total was 12,620. And it was, the tagline was just Hogan Sting. It's Hogan Sting 2 for the championship. It was like the biggest match they could possibly do, and they screwed it up at Starrcade, and they try to make amends here at this event at the Cow Palace. But what did you guys think of the event overall before we go into each match?
Yeah, I thought it was a really solid event. I think there's a lot of good moments throughout the event, which we'll probably cover. But yeah, definitely, it's one of the matches of the iconic when you kind of go back to it. I remember being at that age, going back to it, sort of in my kind of teenage years, remembering I was so excited. This is one of the most exciting matches I'd been excited about that main event because it was so big at that time.
I thought the pay-per-view was really fun to watch. It was cool going back to see it because I was really young when it was on. And going back and watching it was just, I remember like being a kid and just getting that kind of the pop from like the Hogan Sting kind of match, and that NWO stuff was just great.
Yeah, you go back and look at some of this NWO stuff, and they're just like involved in every aspect of the show pretty much. At this point, none of them have any championship titles. It's just interesting. They're going into the pay-per-view with no championship titles held by anybody in the massive NWO that was at this time. Remember, they had Virgil, Scott Norton. They had a bunch of guys in here that didn't make a lot of sense, but at the time it was cool. But if you go back and look at it, you see how detrimental it kind of was to the overall company and the product itself. But it was a fun pay-per-view to watch. It really was. It's typical WCW for the time period, right? For the Nitros at the time and the Thunders, it was very, very good undercard matches, especially with the cruiserweight stuff and everybody else. Once it gets to like the NWO stuff, where it gets to the tag teams and it gets to when Nash and Hogan involved, and then all the singles main event stuff, you see the downfall of the card at that point. It's like it peaks very high and then it just drops down tail ends when it gets to the main event. But it's classic WCW, it really is, and it's amazing how that ends up working out. Let's go off the top right quick. What was the best match to you guys on the show?
Do you want to go first, Barry, or should I go first?
You go first.
It's got to be the Jericho Juventud Guerrera match. That was incredible. Jericho back then, it was just about sort of getting into his element just before he kind of obviously went on to bigger things. But for me, that was a phenomenal match. I really enjoyed it.
I would have to go for Diamond Dallas Page and Benoit. It was just such a great match. The story in it was great. The finish was great. Just everything from it was just amazing.
Yeah, but I would have to agree with Jonesy on this one. I think Chris Jericho and Juventud, but like there's a close second is that Diamond Dallas Page, Chris Benoit match. Diamond Dallas Page really endearing himself to the fans over this time period, that late 97, 98 era. And then 99, I believe he won his first title, and then in 2000. But very endearing to the crowd. It's just like extremely hardworking individual. Took it very seriously, the whole entire product, and it came off well. So-called the people's champion at the time. It was really good. And I think they waited a little bit too long to put the title on him. I think it was just 99 was just like the back end of WCW where everything started to fall off. And he gets hit with that stigma of being the guy that was given a title, a 3-time champ in like the worst time period for WCW. So I think that hurts him, his legacy in the end. And I think it's just, it's interesting because like Goldberg dominates 1998 for the most part, like the latter part of 98. and NWO and Sting dominate the first half of '98. You see, a young Bill Goldberg on this show taking on Brad Armstrong, and it's during his streak. They haven't exactly said the number he was undefeated by. I don't think they were keeping track of it, but they talk about him being undefeated, and he's still billed as Bill Goldberg when he comes out. So it's pretty interesting. The couple things to get into. The first dark match they had was Ultimo Dragon taking on Shiryu in a singles match. Shiryu out there with Sonny Ono, a big buddy of Eric Bischoff. So the little bit of Jones, you have a little bit of backstory as to what was going on backstage before this pay-per-view came on the air.
Yeah, so basically with the backstage thing, this was in essence a tryout for Tsuyu. Tsuyu was basically Kaz Hayashi. WWE was also after him at the time, so this was kind of them trying him out to see if he was any good. But obviously it didn't make it onto the main show. It was just a tryout match, really.
Yeah. We have some interesting things. We'll talk about it when we get to the main event, because there's a couple of things that Eric Bischoff has said previously about as to why that main event happened the way it happened. So let's get into the pay-per-view. The pay-per-view starts off with Booker T taking on the WCW television champion Rick Martel. Just a random Rick Martel sighting in WCW. It's like this whole run, he just gets there for like a month or two, wins the TV title. I mean, I understand he's an established veteran with a lot of is a ring general, and he has a lot of experience. And I was amazed at how over Booker T was at this time period, like separating from the Harlem Heat thing. He still has the same gear and the same song, but he's embarking on a singles run, and he's a big time fan favorite. I mean, everything he did, the fans were just eating it up. Every single thing, his entrance, every move that he pulled off in the first match. Because remember, for some reason, they decided to set this up as Booker versus Martel, and whoever wins, Perry Saturn gets the guy after that for the for the title. So it was interesting how the way they set that up. I guess this whole thing was just set up to build Booker T into a bigger star. And I think WCW, they've done a lot of things wrong in the WCW run, but this is one of the things they did right, and how they built Booker T as like a homegrown guy with Harlem Heat with Stevie Ray. He ventures off from that, goes to a singles run career, and it's built well. And then he eventually becomes world champion, a few years later. And I just thought it was amazing how he was over with everything he did in this entire match. And then, he does end up getting the win over Rick Martel. I'll play the clip right now of the Rick Martel win right now. So you see how over he was just hitting Rick Martel with that, Harlem sidekick. So Barry, what you think of the Booker T Rick Martel match for the WCW World Television Championship?
I loved this match. It was a great opening to the show. So I normally do stuff out of 5 stars. I gave this a 3 stars. Booker T, like you said, was so over at this point. And just everything he done was just looked great as well. He still had that kind of Harlem Heat gimmick, but the Rick Martel stuff was just random. I didn't expect to see him in WCW this late, but I was happy Booker got the win here as well.
Jonesy, what about you? Got any? What you think of the match, and then you have any backstage info on the Booker T Martel?
Okay, yeah, I thought the match was really, really solid. It was far better than the match of the month before it sold out. I think this match was really, really good. It was a really good thing that they gave Booker T the belt. I think it was the right move. In terms of backstage gossip, interesting enough, Rick Martel got injured in this match. So the match went ahead, and he was actually injured halfway through it, yet they were still able to finish it, which I think you never would have known looking at that clip, definitely.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think he tore up his knee during the match, and they announced it after the match was over during the Saturn one. Always Talk Wrestling in the chat. Hey, Nonstop Wrestling chat. Jonesy chats and Rated R for Wrestling. Yeah, what's up? Always Talk Wrestling. How you doing, man? Welcome to the stream. I don't know if you're familiar with the show of SuperBrawl 8, but if you're not, I suggest you go back on the network and check it out after you watch this, because it was a pretty solid show. We enjoyed it, for the most part. All right, so your new WCW World Television Champion Booker T, super over with the fans, big pop when he wins. He immediately gets attacked by Perry Saturn after the match. Perry Saturn, part of the flock at this point, comes out and immediately attacks Booker T to start off the match. And the match started off kind of off a little bit. There was a couple botched spots, little weird stuff going on between Booker T and Perry Saturn. Perry Saturn was kind of like all over the place to start the matchup. I think he blew himself up a little bit too early in the match. He looked like he was like kind of sucking wind towards the beginning part of the match. But after that, they got into their groove. The match got better and better, and I thought it ended up being a solid match. It went 14 minutes. The first match went 10, and the second 14. So 24 minutes in total. More or less 25 minutes for Booker T in the first two matchups, and he ends up still getting the win here. And I think felt like this whole thing was just to build Booker T more and more and more, get him a singles title, and then continue to build him. And he's just so over. But let me show you the finish of the Saturn Booker T match. Yeah, so Saturn Booker T hits him with the Harlem sidekick, and he gets the win on Perry Saturn. Jonesy, what did you think of this matchup being the second matchup immediately following the Rick Martel match?
I thought it was a really solid match. I think Perry Saturn's a very good worker. I love the Northern Light suplex. I thought that was a great spot in the match. And yeah, I thought it was really, really good. This clearly shows they're building Booker T for something bigger. And I think his work throughout was really, really good. I was really impressed. Really solid worker.
What about you, Barry?
I didn't like the fact that Perry Saturn, Booker T Perry Saturn was right after Rick Martel. I didn't like that, but like you said at the start, it just felt quite off. It felt like Perry Saturn tired his cell out jumping over that fence. But when the match started getting into it, it was really good. I forgot how good Saturn was at this point as well in his career. And it was obviously building that kind of younger Booker T, getting him into that kind of picture of being the next guy.
Yeah. Let's get to the chat. Always talks wrestling. So I have no clue about this show. Not many people do, man. It's like a forgotten show because everybody remembers Starrcade '97, not the one that happened afterwards. But it's a good show. It's better than Starrcade, to be honest with you. It's typical, like we said, typical WCW at the time. Very good undercard to mid card, and then the main events tail off in terms of quality. Always Talks Wrestling, King Booker T. When are we getting King of the Ring? I'm tired of Corbin being king. Yeah, I mean, the whole king gimmick, it's just like, I think Booker was the only guy to really do it right in recent memory. I mean, Wade Barrett was okay as king. He was better as Bad News. But yeah, I think Booker T was the last good, like, real king. He really, embraced the gimmick and it came off well. Eric, what's up, Eric? Yo, LOL, Saturn looks funny with hair. He does. I mean, shout out to Saturn. He was always very good, especially, he was part of the Eliminators in ECW, then coming to WCW and then being part of the Radicals and then doing the whole mop gimmick thing that they had him do in WWE. But yeah, he's had some rough times of late, and he's had some, ups and downs in his life, but hopefully he turns it around. Kobe talks. Hey, everyone. Hey, Kobe, how you doing, man? Welcome to the stream. I don't know if you're familiar with the show or the time period in general of WCW, but thank you for showing up for the live stream. Let's get to the next match. And this is a funny one. And I call this one funny because I'm a big fan of Disco, especially now because he just talks so much crap. And La Parka, I always liked the chairman of WCW and his little dance, the strut. I used to do it all the time in Revenge, the strut with La Parka. But this was funny because Tony Schiavone kind of, buries this match from the get-go because he says, we just had Booker T versus Rick Martel. We have the big championship match later on, and you have this match of two people fighting because of dancing. It's just like, saying that's what it was, who could strut better. And that's what this whole thing was about, this whole match. And I wasn't a huge fan of the match, but it kind of was what it was. It was all filler. And you have Disco Inferno hitting the stunner here to get the win over La Parka. Let me show you the ending of this match right here. Yeah, so that's the end of the match. The Chart Buster, which is just a stunner, by Disco Inferno on La Parka getting the win. And I guess he's allowed to strut his stuff after the match. But yeah, it was just a match that was there. But it's interesting. A lot of the pay-per-view during the matches, you have the announcers just hyping up Sting versus Hogan the entire time. So they'll miss a lot of stuff in the match because they want to just hype up Sting and Hogan for the title. And I think that's one of the detriments of WCW is that they would always just go after, even during matches, just talk about what the NWO was doing. And I don't know if that was just the default by them to kind of do that to keep people interested because the NWO was the hottest thing on the show, but they just kept doing it. They kept bringing up NWO. Every lull in the match, just bring up NWO. But the match in general, Barry, what did you think of the match? Disco versus La Parka.
See, I was always a big fan of La Parka just because the chair, the cool look, the kind of skill kind of thing. Like you says, Disco Inferno, I'm kind of turning more into a fan as I'm getting older because I just like watching them moan about stuff. But the match, it was just filler. It's one of the problems with WCW had here. They just put two people together randomly and created a story. And It was nothing great. It was just two people kind of dancing around the ring for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Jonesy, what about you? You have any info, anything backstage, or just the match in general? What you thought of it?
Just generally the match, I thought it was okay. It kind of cooled the audience down after the great work earlier in the night. So I get the placement on the card, but yeah, for me it didn't really connect. The right person went over definitely, but I just thought it kind of was a strange match, strange mixture of opponents against each other. I thought it was really weird.
Yeah, it definitely was. Before I forget, Barry, the sick NWO World Championship. Is that a pillow behind you?
Yeah, man, it's a pillow.
Yeah,
Got it for my birthday last year. So
things awesome, and it's apropos for the show that we're covering. Let's get to the chat. We have Always Talks Wrestling. I hope Cole wins King of the Ring. I mean, I guess that'd be pretty interesting if he did. I mean, it would be pretty nuts. You probably have a fun time with it. Eric in the chat, Disco, word to your mother, La Parka, great luchador. Yeah, I remember Disco, the word to your mother thing he used to do like later end of WCW. I'm a big Disco guy, man. I think he's entertaining, for what he was. La Parka, great luchador. Yeah, I mean, there's different versions of La Parka, like different guys who are La Parka. I have to believe that WCW was the original La Parka. The ones you see now, you can't tell which is the real one, original of La Parka, and which is like the guy who's just using the gimmick now. Big Boy Facts John. Hey, what's up, Big Boy? How you doing, man? Welcome to the stream. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for writing in the chat. If you're not familiar with the show, the SuperBrawl show, check it out. It's actually a fun show, like we said before. You've really enjoyed it in general. But that was the match. So it was La Parka losing to the Disco Inferno. Now the next thing on the show was an interesting one. We had Bill Goldberg in the more or less the infancy of the Goldberg run. They're not counting exactly how many wins he has in his undefeated streak, but they are referring to the fact that he is undefeated. And again, he's billed on the bottom on the network version anyways. Bill Goldberg, when he comes out, he's taking on Brad Armstrong of the Armstrong family, the legendary Armstrong family. And it's a quick, it's Goldberg at the time. It's quick, 2 minutes and 23 seconds in total. I feel bad for Brad Armstrong. He's such a tremendous in-ring performer, Brad Armstrong is, but against Goldberg, he's going to take some lumps. And he took a couple here, but let's get to the end where he gets hit by the jackhammer. But you see how amazing and how over Goldberg was at the time, and kudos to Brad Armstrong for making Goldberg look so good. He took one hell of a spear in this match. There was a really nice spot where he had him up in a military press, dropped him on the shoulder, and then power slammed him. I thought Brad Armstrong did a tremendous job of taking that move. It made it look tremendous. And yeah, you saw him holding Brad Armstrong up in the air, and Brad Armstrong just kind of holding himself up like that. So shout out to Brad Armstrong and how tremendous of a performer he is, making Goldberg look really good. But Jonesy, what did you think about this match?
I thought it did what it needed to do. Goldberg obviously got much bigger plans for him. I think it made him look $1 million, as you said. Brad Armstrong did a great job. And I like the whole sort of spear and jackhammer. I thought it was delivered really, really well. And I think the belly-to-belly suplex, it just made Goldberg look absolutely awesome. I think it made him look like he's unstoppable. And even the early reaction from the crowd, I thought it was really, really good.
What about you, Barry? What you think of the match?
It done what it done. You have to applaud Brad for just being putting Goldberg over so much, and then it's one of those matches on the route to that big Goldberg streak that we get.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like if you look back at the streak, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere, the numbers that they make it all up. Like 173-0 was like the biggest, fakest number of all time. So yeah, they didn't refer to it like what number it was at this point, but they did refer to the fact that he's undefeated. So let's go to the chat. We have Always Talks Wrestling, King Cole. He's really into that one. He says, the next thing he says, imagine Maggle bowing down to Cole. That'd be pretty interesting. Next thing he puts, Kobe Talks, Disco was a good comedy character. Yeah, for what he was a lot of fun. He got over in the sense of what he was trying to accomplish, and he's a solid guy in the ring. I always thought he had a really good punch as well, and kick. Kobe, imagine if Adam Cole's first storyline on the main roster is that he is the cousin of Michael Cole. That would be pretty interesting. I can see that's more of a WCW thing. If there is WCW, they definitely would have done it. But it would have been pretty interesting. But yeah, then you can see Maggle bowing down to Cole in that point. Yeah. Let's get to the next match in the show, because now we had the two good matches to start off the show. We had a lull a little bit with Disco and La Parka, and then Goldberg is just a quick match against Brad Armstrong. Let's get into what Jonesy and I think is the best match on the show. Chris Jericho, the Cruiserweight champion, all going full in effect into his heel run as Chris Jericho, calling people Jerichoholics and all that, and being very outlandish. And you really see Jericho taking form and being comfortable in his character, taking on Juventud Guerrera. And if Juventud loses, he has to take the mask off. This is the time where a lot of luchadors were losing their masks because Eric Bischoff is just not down with masks. He just didn't want him to have it. He got the whole luchador thing in there mostly because of Mike Tenay. He's the most knowledgeable guy when it came to luchadors and Mexican wrestling at the time in WCW. But yeah, Eric Bischoff was just tired of the masks. He got tired of it, didn't want it anymore. And this is what we got. But it was a tremendous match between two guys. The Cruiserweight division at this time was just so good, so well done, so many good matches, and everything was so well booked. But let's get to the finish as to how Juventud Guerrero lost this match and was forced to take off his mask. Yeah, so the Lion Tamer, the original Lion Tamer, not the Walls of Jericho, the one that actually looked like it kind of hurt, he makes him submit, and then Juventud would take off his mask, and he would finally reveal as to who Juventud is under the mask, and the rest was history. What did Barry? What did you think of the match in general?
I thought this was great, even though the one later on in the card I thought was a little bit better. This one was amazing. Both guys looked great. I'm never a big kind of the cruiserweight division in WCW was just insanely good, but this match I would probably say was probably one of the better ones that I've seen, kind of going back, remembering when I was younger. But on this card, this has to be up there as number 2 for me. Is the best match of the night.
What about you, Jonesy?
Yeah, I just thought it was superb. That stuff like the 455 bird splash, that looked amazing. The tombstones there, and the restart in the middle of the match. So you're getting into it, and you think, oh, Juventud's going to keep hold of his mask. Then, oh no, they're restarting it, and then he obviously goes on and loses. I think it's they tell a really good story in this match. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, so when it comes to the restart, you have Jericho getting pinned after the 450 that Juventud hits on him. Jericho grabs the bottom rope, but Mickey J, the referee, counts to 3 anyways. They restart the match, and then you had some interesting things going after that. But yeah, and the interesting thing was that Jericho wrestled part of the beginning of the match with the title belt still around his waist. I thought that was kind of interesting and funny that he decided to pull that off. He got kicked in the stomach and then took it off eventually afterwards. But let's go to the chat. Yeah, Always Talks Wrestling. R.I.P. Cole. WWE needs to do some good stuff with NXT talent. I think Kyle O'Reilly is getting a big pick. Yeah, he's gonna. I mean, Kyle O'Reilly versus Adam Cole is gonna be awesome. Hopefully it lives up to the Ring of Honor days that they had against each other. But I think that whole storyline is gonna be awesome. And I think it's really gonna carry NXT going into the Mania weekend. Always Talk Wrestling. Chelsea draw 0-0. Next thing, Eric. He got tired of luchador workhorses of WCW wearing masks. What an ass move by Bischoff. Yeah, especially the biggest egregious movie he made there was having Rey Mysterio take out his mask a few years later. But yeah, it's just the time period. He just hated the luchadors with masks. I don't know why. I'm sure he's brought it up before in his reasoning as to why he hated it, but it was just it didn't make any sense. I mean, the luchadors, that was their whole shtick, the mask. I mean, Juventud, I understand because he's not a bad looking guy without the mask, so you can market him because he's not bad looking himself. But some of the other guys, you really need to take the mask off, like Psychosis, guys like that. You didn't have to take the mask off these guys, but he did in the end. But yeah, I would say that's the best match of the night. Jonesy agrees. We'll get to Barry's match of the night later on because we have one match in between, and it's a terrible one. It really is. It is the British Bulldog, who is not in a good place, taking on Steve Mongo McMichael, who I believe was part of the Four Horsemen at the time. And yeah, Mongo, I mean, it just is what he is. I had this conversation with Jonesy a couple of days ago when we were watching this show. When he watched the show, he let me know about it. He said Mongo was just in there because of Deborah. Obviously, yeah, I mean, that's what it is. It's basically how Mark Merrill lasted so long in WWF because of Sable. That's really the only reason he lasted so long. But the match went 6 minutes. It was a bad match. It really was. Mongo is just, he's young into his wrestling career, but it was never going to take off, right? Like he was never going to be good in ring. There was a spot in the match where Mongo goes to hit, British Bulldog up against the ring post and ends up hurting his wrist. And that would be like what causes the end of the match. You have, the submission being put on the wrist by British Bulldog. The referee would just call for the match and call it off. And then Mongo would be really upset after the match. But let me show you the finish of this match. British Bulldog versus Steve Mongo McMichael. Yeah, so he didn't give up, but they just called off the match, and Mongo was really upset by this. But Jonesy, I'll start with you off first, because you seem to be a huge Mongo McMichael fan. What did you think of the match?
Yeah, as I said, the match wasn't particularly great. A couple of points. I think the fact that British Bulldog's never been a submission expert. Like, he's never really, when he was in WWF, he never ended his matches by submission. I think that was kind of missed there. In terms of a positivity, there was one positive. This match was better than their time at Nitro. They had a match a couple of weeks before that, and it was even worse. I can't really understand that. Sorry.
Yeah, it's tough that it could be even worse. Barry, what you think of the match?
I thought it was terrible. Like, it was like Jonesy says, the one had a couple of weeks before it that was worse, but this one was just, it was like, why would you even recreate it since you've just seen it a few weeks ago and it was terrible? Why did you think this one was going to be any better?
Yeah, right. It's like you kind of like banging your head against the wall as to why they would book it 2 times like that. It's just I mean, British Bulldog is not the same British Bulldog, right? He's a different person. He's different in ring. He's not the same physically. A tremendous athlete when he was in the WWF. Absolutely tremendous athlete. And Steve Mongo Michael is a former football player, and it's just really not there. Interesting that you see Kevin Green, the late Kevin Green, you see his jersey in the crowd as he played for the 49ers. You see Kevin Green come in later on into WCW and have his matches. All right, so let's get to the next match on the show, which is Barry's favorite match of the show, the match of the night for him. It is for the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship. The champion, Diamond Dallas Page, the People's Champion, taking on Chris Benoit. It was a really good match. To me, this is just underneath Chris Jericho and Juventud, but not by much. It was a really, really good match. It got physical because in the beginning they kind of shook hands, a sign of respect. At one point, you have DDP going for the diamond cutter. Chris Benoit gets out of it and then spends some time walking around the outside of the ring. And when he gets back in, DDP's not happy with it, so they get face to face, and then it gets really physical after that point. But Chris Benoit's such a tremendous performer in the ring. Diamond Dallas Page endearing himself to the fans, continued to endear himself to the fans because they could see how much of a hard worker he is. He was never the best in ring, but he was polished, and you could tell how much time and how much he cared about it in the end. And he's obviously one of those guys that ended up being bigger afterwards, after he retired with DDP Yoga and everything he's doing now. And you see just the work ethic in him in this match. But in the end, he hits a diamond cutter, a good spot where he hits a diamond cutter. I'll show it to you right now. But Diamond Dallas Page still your United States heavyweight champion. All right, so Barry, this is your favorite match of the show. So let me know what your thoughts on it right now.
Yeah, man, I just loved everything from this. I love that kind of DDP run he does at this point with like Benoit, Ravens, Randy Savage. Like, it's like a whole year, like 13, 14 months. He just has great matches with just everybody goes in the ring. And like you said, it shows how much work ethic he's got, how good it is. Benoit at this time as well would probably say he's getting close to being the peak of his career. And these two guys just meeting in this kind of physical brawl. And I loved the ending as well, just how it was like the kind of diamond cutter out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why it was the best match for me. I would say it's just over Chris Jericho and Juvie for me.
Jonesy, what about you? What do you think of Diamond Dallas Page versus Chris Benoit for the United States title?
Excellent match. I think the highlight for me was when Benoit did his 3 rolling German suplexes. The crowd think it's going to be a pinfall, and then somehow there's a kick out. And you can look at the reaction of the crowd. I love the crowd reaction. I think it really further builds it up. But no, this was great. Further shows what a good worker both wrestlers were in this match. I thought I was really impressed. Funny enough, an interesting point as well is Benoit does go on sort of to bigger things, but DDP also holds on the belt for a while, and then his next kind of match is when he's got the United States kind of feud with United States feud with, he defends the title sort of in that series. Sorry, Benoit goes on to that series with Booker T after this. Yep. Sorry, I got confused there.
Yeah, but I think Benoit at this time, probably like 96, 97, is probably the best wrestler on the planet, could be at that point. I think he's just so tremendous in ring. And yeah, it's just Diamond Dallas Page. I felt like like Barry was saying, he had that long run of just having really good matches. I think he should have won a title during that time period. I think they waited a little bit too long to have him win the title because, again, he gets that stigma of the fact that he won it during WCW's like worst years, right? He was like 3-time champion in '99 and then in 2000. I just some of the worst years of WCW, and I think that's a detriment to him and his legacy. But still, 3-time champ, and he just had the run he had. He's been with the company for a while at this point, and he's finally getting the stuff he deserves. But yeah, Diamond Dallas Page still United States champion. Next match on the show is an interesting one. It's Lex Luger, the total package, taking on Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. At this time, Randy Savage is having some issues with the NWO. It's part of the NWO. It seems to be like on the outs with the NWO. Lex Luger is getting booed out of the building in this match. And this is a hot crowd, right? At the Cow Palace. Mostly everybody's an NWO fan. They are booing the living hell out of Lex Luger this entire match. They do not want to see him win. They're excited when Miss Elizabeth interferes in the torture rack and helps out Randy Savage. But after that happens, she interferes. Here comes the NWO. And you have Luger and Savage fighting off the NWO. Hogan comes down. The camera cuts to Hogan. It's funny because as soon as they start fighting the NWO, somebody rings the bell. The referee doesn't call for it, but somebody rings the bell. Hogan comes down, calls back the troops. And then you see the finish in the ring from an angle far out. I'll show it to you guys in a little bit. And it's the torture rack on Savage. The referee calls for the bell, and that's how it ends. I thought it was like a convoluted, disastrous finish, bad camera work. But I'll show it right now as to how the bad camera work for this ending of this match. So he says, let it go. He just lets it happen. But you see the camera work focusing on Hogan as the bell rings and you got Savage in the torture rack. So there's issues in the NWO and Randy Savage is on the outs of the NWO. They don't want him part of the crew anymore. And Hogan is there taking a lot of the spotlight from the match, even though it doesn't really matter because the match wasn't good anyways. It went 7 minutes, almost 7.5 minutes. It just really wasn't that good. But, Jonesy, what did you think of Luger versus Savage?
Yeah, it was a mess. I think it was further kind of made a mess when you had the NWO B squad come out. The only person of any credibility was Hogan, but when the others came out, I just thought, oh, here we go. This is Retribution turning up this week. That's what I kind of felt like. Sorry to throw in a modern bun, but that's what I felt like, man.
What about you, Barry? What did you think of this match?
I totally agree. It was a mess. Like it was just all over the place. I don't really get what was kind of going on. The ending was just like you said. The camera work was terrible. Hogan took most of the kind of buzz out the ending for no reason. He's coming out later in the night. You didn't need to do that. So, it was a mess.
It's interesting how, like I said, like they called the bell and the referee didn't call for the bell. They just rang it. So I guess they assumed it was a no DQ match. So they forgot it was no DQ and they just rang the bell because as soon as NWO always hits a match, they kind of it's a DQ finish. The NWO screwed everything up. But Jones, you're right. That's the NWO B squad there coming out. They had so many members that they had their A squad and their B squad. And that's the one that would come out and interfere. They would come out and interfere in the main event as well, the B squad. But yeah, Hogan takes up all the camera at this point, and you just see like in the background, the torture rack going on here. And yeah, I've never been a fan of Lex Luger. I think he's just always been like a guy. I don't understand. I understand the look as to why he's been pushed everywhere he's gone, but he's just never really panned out really anywhere. He would beat Hogan for the title at one point and get a real big pop off of it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All there is to that. Good to see Miss Elizabeth out there. And yeah, Randy Savage will get involved in the main event as well. But let's get to the next match, which wasn't really much of a match. It was the tag team championship match, WCW tag team championship. There's actually 2 titles. The Steiners have 2 titles in this. They have, I believe it's the NWO style championship tag team and then WCW one. They're coming out and you have Scott Steiner already making the transition into that NWO Steiner that you would see later on with the short hair and the big Papa Pump Steiner, the big booty daddy Steiner. Later on, you would see him already making that turn. He has the goatee, dark hair, a lot different, and he already has the massive bicep already. So they're taking on the outsiders, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall with Dusty Rhodes, and the Steiners have Ted DiBiase with them. The match would start. There seems to be a little bit like weird. You could tell what's going to happen because of the way Scott Steiner's acting during the beginning of the match. He's like kind of lingering around. And you could tell he's up to something. At one point, the match starts. They're in opposite corners, and then for some reason they switch. So you have Nash and Steiner swapping corners, adjacent corners for some reason. I guess I don't know why they did it that way. Maybe the camera. But then you would have Scott Steiner kind of dominating the match, dominating the outsiders. They're gonna do, he gets on the ground, do his dog face gremlin taunt, and then here comes Steiner to go above him and kind of be on top of him, and they're supposed to do their pose. At this point, he comes the heel turn, the NWO turn for Scott Steiner. He would join the NWO, but this is interesting. He beats down his brother. Then here comes Hall. They go for the pin, and he kicks out Steiner. And then you have this awkward moment where it's like, does Rick know that Scott betrayed him, and then the match kind of continues, and then Steiner goes back. Scott goes back out to the ring apron, and kind of just stands there like he's part of the tag team match still. Then you have a little bit of a brawl. You have the Razor's Edge that Scott Hall has a trouble putting on at first, drops him back down, then picks him back up, and you have, I guess, Scott helping him out, and that'll be the end of the match. And then you would see this happen at the end.
This is sickening. He's handing the tag belts over to Hall and Nash.
Yeah, did you ever think you'd see a Steiner hand away the tag team championship to their opponents?
So there you see, the match would be over, and then Steiner would hand the belts to the Outsiders, officially becoming part of the NWO, betraying his brother. But it was weird. It was awkward, and I'm not sure if it was botched, the fact that Rick kicked out. Barry, what'd you think about this match and how everything went down?
Yeah, that Rick kick out bit was just so weird. It was like, why is he doing it? And then Steiner goes back to his corner, and he's standing there, pacing up and down. You're like, what's going on? Like, you might do this. Does he know? Like you said, like, does he know he's kind of betrayed him? It was a whole like just big mess up. I kind of feel when I was watching it.
What about you, Jonesy? What do you think of this match and the whole awkward nature of it?
Yeah, kind of going into the match, I knew the belts had traded twice sort of beforehand, so I kind of thought, okay, this is going to be fine. They'll probably go for a DQ finish. But when I did see the heel turn at the end, I thought, wow, it's kind of shocking. You look at the crowd reaction, generally putting myself back in that sort of time zone, it's just a massive shock for me. I think the match was a bit of a mess, but that heel turn was callous. Even Ted DiBiase got attacked, and that kind of, it's rare to see him get beaten up usually as a heel, so that was a bit shocking to me.
Yeah, even Dusty Rhodes got in on the beatdown of Ted DiBiase, threw him into the ring post. Yeah, but the fans were into it. Like I said, the fans were all NWO for this event. All they cared about was NWO and Sting. They were really into Dallas Page and Booker T, but they just cared about NWO, and they were excited when he made the turn on his brother. Let's get to the chat. Eric has some funny things here. LOL Virgil. Vincent, technically, right? He's Vincent in WCW, but NWO B Squad right there, one of the main members of the B Squad. And Eric with the awkward. Yeah, it was just awkward. It was weird the way that went down. Super, super weird. Like we were saying, it just seemed like Rick didn't know that Scott betrayed him. Even after the match, it kind of seemed like he didn't know what happened. So it was weird, and I just thought it was like odd, and it didn't come off well. Even though the turn came off well, but what transpired afterwards is really what messed everything up, kind of. Let's get to the next thing on the show, and it's the main event. It's the one everybody was waiting for after the botched finish at Starrcade 97. With the reason for it happening, so it was supposed to be a fast count, as we heard at Starrcade 97. Nick Patrick was supposed to be the NWO ref. He was supposed to do a fast count. He didn't do a fast count, but they played it off like he did. He gets suspended by J.J. Dillon, one of the most boring men in the history of professional wrestling, J.J. Dillon. He comes out, and he would reinstate Nick Patrick at this pay-per-view, saying that they looked at the evidence and they saw nothing wrong. Obviously, I mean, you could tell you didn't have time. You didn't really have to like go back and look at it because you got the replay as soon as the match was over. That wasn't the case. One of the reasons we heard from Eric Bischoff, and it probably has to do a lot with Hogan, that Sting came back and he wasn't ready, mainly because he wasn't tan. And that's one of the reasons that Bischoff would use as to the reason why he wasn't ready for that spot Sting and ready to take the title off of Hogan. He just wasn't tan enough. And that's coming from Hogan as well. He's probably like, brother, this guy's not, he's not looking the part. Look how tan, look how good I look. And Sting's gonna come in looking kind of pale. So, I mean, if you go back and watch that match, he is a little bit pale on the arms because he has the whole bodysuit. That's probably why he had the top piece, right? And he would wear the singlet look in this one. But yeah, you had Bret Hart get involved. No signing of Bret Hart at this one. But the match itself, it's not really a good match. It just kind of is what it is. And then they have a ref bump. You have Nick Patrick coming out and calling it down the middle, which is pretty interesting. And then Hogan's pretty upset by it. And then you have NWO B Squad coming out, interfering. Sting would fight them off. Here comes Randy Savage and attacks Hogan with a spray can bottle and puts it next to him before the pin. But here's the ending of the match. You see how excited the fans are for Sting winning the WCW Championship here finally. They vacated it after that whole debacle at Starrcade 97. You saw the spray can bottle in between the arm of Hulk Hogan, and afterwards you would have Sting spray paint WCW on the body of Hulk Hogan. Jonesy, what did you think about this match and Sting becoming WCW champion?
I thought it was fun. I thought it was a really fun match from two iconic superstars. I really kind of enjoyed it. I like the way that they sort of build up. It almost looks like at the end that Sting's not going to get the belt because J.J. Dillon comes out, almost like for a dusty finish, and they don't go ahead with that. But I liked it, mate. I thought it was the right move, Sting going over, and it was far better than the match at Starrcade, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think anything would be better than that. that one, that was a disaster. Barry, what did you think about Sting Hogan for the championship?
I just feel like it was just the match they were meant to have at Starrcade. Like, Sting going over is the best thing to do because everybody loved Sting at that time. I remember being a kid and just popping just screaming when he done it. But going back and watching it, you just see it. You're like, of course, Sting, they had to redo this. They had to make it number 2 just to make it finish the way it was meant to finish at Starrcade.
Yeah, I mean, it's just basically like they had to like kind of redo it. This reminds me, it's not exactly the same, but of WrestleMania 2000, they had the Fatal 4-Way, right? They wanted to have Mick Foley in, and they put the Big Show in there because the whole weird finish to the Royal Rumble 2000. Then the next month at Backlash, they do Rock, Triple H for the title. Rock wins because Austin's return. So I felt like it's kind of a similar situation where they just had to do what they had to do. And then, but WCW's reasoning behind it, Bischoff, is the fact that Sting wasn't tan enough is just a ridiculous reason. That's Sting's first match in over a year with the whole silent thing, fighting off the NWO, not really saying anything. The fact that he's coming out at Starrcade and here at SuperBrawl from the back, I think kind of hurts the character. I think he should have kept doing the stuff from the crowd. I think it would have been better off for him. Eric in the chat, JJ Dillon, the most boring man in the history of professional wrestling. Yeah, it's true. I mean, he found that one funny. Yeah, it's true. He's extremely boring. He was like the commissioner of WCW, and it was just very boring. So he would come out and talk to Mean Gene about whatever the hell was going on. But you saw Nick Patrick injured in this match. He would get hurt from another ref bump. Little Nate would be hurt in this match from a ref bump. As Hogan pulled him in for the one he was about to hit by the Stinger Splash. Yeah, it was the match they should have had at Starrcade, but they got 2 pay-per-views out of it, so I guess it is what it is. And you have Randy turning on the NWO here. So just, some final thoughts as to what you guys, after going through the whole thing again, how would you, rate the pay-per-view as a whole? Barry, I'll start with you.
I thought the pay-per-view was great. Out of 5, I'd probably give it like a 3.5. The whole show was pretty good, even though there's kind of low moments in it. You totally forget them after you watch it because you've got the Booker stuff, DDP, Benoit, Jericho, Hogan, Sting, even the Steiner kind of turned into the NWO, starting that whole how we know Scott Steiner to this day. It was a good pay-per-view. I enjoyed it.
What about you, Jonesy?
If I was going to rate it out of 5, I'd definitely go for like a 4 out of 5. I think it was really, really good. It had some excellent in-ring action, as we discussed earlier. I liked the turns. There was a lot of coming out of this show. They were really clever what they did. So obviously Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage had a match the next month. That was built nicely. And it made me want to see Nitro the next night, which is what I crucially want from every pay-per-view. You want to see the next chapter. And there was a lot of storytelling. I thought it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think too the crowd helped this one out a lot. The crowd was pretty hot for a majority of it. They got a lot of big pops, like the Booker T stuff, Diamond Dallas Page hitting this diamond cutter. They got a big pop off of that one. And everything NWO people just enjoyed. Even though you go back and look at it, and some of it's kind of like, why are these guys part of NWO? You know what I'm saying? That why do they have a B squad? It kind of makes no sense. But it kind of is what it is. But you kind of look back at it now, in hindsight's 2020 on this one, and you're kind of just thinking like, why are these guys in the NWO? They should have kept the group smaller. And I think it ended up hurting the company in whole. Here you have Eric saying Sting looked okay. It's not his fault. Hogan looks like he lives in a desert beach. I mean, yeah, he's a little bit better because he's wearing a singlet in this one. So he probably got the word from Hogan and Bischoff. Dude, you got a tan, or like, brother, you got a tan. You're looking too light. I can't drop the title to you. I can't let you win the title if that's the case. So it's interesting as to how that really works out, and how petty that stuff is, and how vain, how vain they look doing that stuff. Johnny G, what's up, John? Nothing compares to the old days. Definitely awesome, memorable. Yeah, definitely it is. If you go back and watch some of the stuff, some of it hits, some of it doesn't, but this one hit. I'm gonna be a fence sitter here, and I'm gonna go 3.75 in between, like kind of in the middle between both you guys, 3.5 and 4. So I kind of go in between you guys there and choose that one. And in terms of, you picked your matches of the night, but to you guys, what is your highlight of the night? Like, what is the moment you guys saw being like the most like memorable thing of the night? Not in terms of the match itself, but just the moment. Jonesy, I'll start with you on this one.
I think it's Booker T, like getting that title base. I think the fact that he went so hard and he obviously sort of got it, like with literally all the odds against him for him to get that belt. Obviously straight away as well. Let's look at this week at Elimination Chamber, for example. Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan, slightly different, isn't it? But
yeah.
It's Daniel Bryan had a grueling match. Roman Reigns pinned him straight away. Whereas Booker T had a grueling match and he got another win for over Perry Saturn. I thought it was a big win.
What about you, Barry? What you think of like the high point of the show, not in terms of the match, but just the moment that happened that you really resonated with you and you really remember and enjoyed?
I would have said Booker T, but just going for something different. It has to be that kind of Scott Steiner turning on, like breaking up the Steiners, joining NWO, starting that how we know Scott Steiner to this day, kind of the road to that.
Yeah. The road to what he became and what he is now. I mean, he runs a Shoney's in Atlanta, like a restaurant. I'm dying to go there one day. Eventually, I'm gonna go there one day. I just want to see him in person. But for me, it has to be Chris Jericho's entrance in the beginning of that match, right? Because you're seeing the evolution of Jericho into what he becomes and how good he actually is. And you're seeing the infancy of it here, him turning heel the way he was at the time. And the jacket that he had, it was pretty cool. He started the Jericho-holics thing. There's actually a guy who was holding a Jericho-holic sign. He would grab it and then tear it up in his face and be upset with him. The fact that he wrestled the beginning portion of the match with the title on, I just thought was a cool little thing. There's a spot where he goes outside the ring as well, and he's kind of looking for a count out, and he just kind of plays dead there, and you see him kind of staring up every once in a while. That was fun. But just the evolution of Jericho at this point and what he would become, eventually having his feud with Goldberg that should have went further than it did, but it's Goldberg. And I just thought that for me, Chris Jericho himself was like the highlight for me. In the chat, we have Kobe. This is such a great review, guys. Kobe, thank you, brother. I really do appreciate that. These guys are great. Make sure, I implore you guys to follow Jonesy Chats Wrestling and Nonstop Wrestling Chat on YouTube. The description it's in the description section below. There are links to their channels. Subscribe to them. These are good guys. Support these guys. I really appreciate them coming on. Kobe, I really appreciate the kind words about the review. This is a lot of fun. I do enjoy doing this, especially with the 3 people panel and covering these old reviews. Guys, if you guys want any shows reviewed, older shows, and it could be a year ago, it could be 2 years ago, it could be 20, 30 years ago, let us know. We'll watch it and we'll do a review for you guys if you guys enjoy it. Taking fan requests. This is for shout out to Nick on Facebook. Nick, this is for you, buddy. You also asked for SuperBrawl 3, I think, as well, so that may be another one we're going to do after this, SuperBrawl 3. So I appreciate you guys, Jonesy, Barry. Appreciate you guys for stopping by and giving your insight onto this. I appreciate you guys for watching the event as well. That's a big respect to you guys for actually watching the event. And just before we leave, describe your channels and kind of just sell yourselves, advertise yourself for your channels for people to subscribe. Barry, I'll start with you.
So it's daily wrestling content, reviews, podcasts. There's This Week in Wrestling, just daily wrestling content. Come and watch a bald Scottish guy talk about wrestling on the daily.
Here it is. Jonesy, go ahead, plug your stuff.
Yeah, we've got regular kind of reviews of Raw and SmackDown every single kind of week. Some creative stuff on there. We do the co-hosting with Steve from SCW. I don't know if people know that channel as well. So it's just regular in depth, really. We're going to Raw, what's good, what's not so bad. A little bit of ranting, but generally we get in there, just try and predict where it's going to go. Really, it's just really good fun, really.
Yeah, really good stuff. I appreciate you guys for coming on and doing this with me. Shout out to you guys. Steve from SCW, I want to have him on the SuperBrawl 3 if we do that one and have the 4 of us kind of do that one together. I think it'd be a lot of interesting to get 4 different opinions on the matches itself. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Remember to follow Jones, subscribe to Jonesy's channel. It's in the description section. Barry's channel, Nonstop Wrestling Chat. Subscribe to that. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. That's the end of the live stream. That's SuperBrawl 8 from 1998, Sting Hogan, the main event. That's our retro review. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.